The first week is in the books for the English Premier League, and already a lot is happening. I've been trying to keep up with all the craziness for the EPL, and to help me do so, I've got Jack Chat here, who, as we do every single week, we talk about the biggest headlines and stories for the Premier League. Jack, I just got to ask you first, what expectations you had coming into these first matches and everything that happened? Did everything relatively live up to what you thought would occur, or has already this first week been as crazy as it's sounding?
I expected a crazy season. The last few seasons have been very unpredictable, I would say, compared to 10 years ago. You'd always get a certain champion. You'd always get very determined results almost. Whereas at the moment, anyone could beat anyone. And I think that was very well presented in the first week with a few shock results. Well, you call them shock results. Some people could have predicted it, but we'll get stuck into that as we go on in this video. Yeah,
there's one specific game that I really want to talk about, which we're going to get to in a little bit with Manchester United out of nowhere losing to Hull, but we'll get to that in a second. Chelsea, let's start with this, had a 3-2 win over Fulham, and Cole Palmer is getting a lot of attention because he's coming off of the groin issue that held him back last year. Says he's feeling the best that he's ever felt, and it seems like it had a pretty big impact on their scoring in this game. Do you think that him returning provides some early hype for this team, or do you think that maybe people could be getting ahead of themselves?
Yeah, well, I mean, having Cole Palmer back, I think, is not only a benefit for Chelsea, it is honestly a benefit for the league, because the Premier League have lost a lot of big, talented stars in recent years. The numbers of like superstars have dwindled since your Salahs have moved on and since your Rodris have moved to Barcelona. So the Premier League really needs stars like Cole Palmer to shine. And game week 1 this week, we saw that summer off from the World Cup, not going to the World Cup to help recover from that groin injury, has helped massively. He looked like the Cole Palmer of 24-25, or the 2024 Cole Palmer. Absolutely ridiculous in terms of the speed he was up to already. We saw some training clips. I don't know if we can add this after. We saw some training clips from his trainer over the summer with some ridiculously fast moves that they had been practicing. And I saw a comparison video from the first week, game week 1 against Fulham. And a lot of the moves that they had been practicing, he put into play instantly. It was probably one of the most fascinating training videos I've seen from a football player in a long time. We'll definitely try and link that. But he looks so up to game speed, so exciting. And when Cole Palmer's playing his best, he could be the face of the Premier League. And for Chelsea, it does fill a lot of fans with a lot of excitement, because attacking-wise, we know Xabi Alonso likes to play very attacking football, very exciting football. And Cole Palmer has said himself, Xabi has given him the license to play all over the pitch compared to what Maresca was in the previous seasons. And that's where his goal came from against Fulham. My only concern with Chelsea would, of course, be their defence, which has been a problem for them over the past few seasons. We know that Chelsea had one of the best XGs, expected goals, in the past few seasons, but their defence just lets them down, and their ability to get red cards, which we're hoping this season is reeled back a little bit. The one exciting thing for Chelsea is the fact that despite Bob Sanchez's blunder against Fulham, they still won the game, outscoring their opponent. However, Chelsea reports from Fabrizio Romano suggest that Martinez from Aston Villa is available and looking to join Chelsea. So that could somewhat solidify their goalkeeping position a bit more, which I think would fill a lot of fans with a bit more optimism for the season. And I think, you know, in terms of the other title rivals in Manchester City and Liverpool and Arsenal, of course, I think that probably would strike a little bit more fear into them, that Chelsea have a bit more, they're a bit more solidified between the sticks. But title rival, I wouldn't go there just yet. I wouldn't get too excited, but it was a very exciting game. Game of the weekend for sure.
So Arsenal had a really dominant opening victory against Coventry, 3-0 last Friday. Is the hype justified for this Arsenal team? Because that's a pretty strong statement to have at the beginning of a season.
Yeah, I suppose, you know, it's a newly promoted team they're coming up against. I think a lot of people would hope maybe Frank Lampard would have pushed Coventry and maybe hope for an upset, but it looked like Arsenal didn't even get out of second gear on Friday night. Coventry didn't offer too much. Arsenal, it was business as usual. It's going to be hard to take down Arsenal this season unless something dramatic happens. I think the depth they've recruited. I did find it bizarre that Declan Rice was playing straight off the start of the season. I thought maybe the recruitments that had brought in were there to give players like Declan Rice a rest because he'd played so much last season. But it just, they didn't get out of second gear. Goals from Havertz coming back in. Zolis, their new left winger, looks like such a good replacement. The kind of left winger Arsenal have been looking for the past few seasons. And Gabriel Martinelli looks like he's off already because of that. Yeah, it's hard to look past Arsenal this season because that was a very dominant early signs from the basically looking to retain the title, I think.
So the one game that, as we kind of alluded to, that caught everybody's attention, it was making waves on social media across the world, was Manchester United losing to Hull 2-0. Is this evidence that fans should be worried about Manchester United, or did maybe people overlook Hull as a possible riser in the EPL this year?
Yeah, do you know what? I've from our predictions last week, I said Hull would really struggle this season, but boy, have they proved a lot of people wrong. I think you can take nothing away from Hull's performance against Manchester United. Despite the problems Manchester United clearly have, those being their new signings, Tielemans and Andre Santos in the middle of midfield, looking like they were running in quicksand the whole day. They struggled to keep up with the run around Ollie McBurney, the Hull striker, was giving them. He looked like he'd been playing in the Premier League his whole life. I know he's a bit older, but it was really fun to see Hull really bring it to them. And, like I say, taking nothing away from their set-piece goals, they made Manchester United look silly, but I would say players like Baleba, who they've brought in from Brighton for around 70 million, I think he probably will give Manchester United the legs in midfield that they so clearly are lacking. However, again, like teams like Spurs, I suppose Chelsea at times, but like teams like Spurs, at the moment they look like a team who have just brought in a lot of new signings and they're just not a team yet. And of course, a lot of these Manchester United signings came in last season and they performed really well under Carrick. But it does worry me slightly that, well, for Manchester United fans, the fact that they now have Champions League football and they will be playing multiple times a week. So a lot of these players need to buck up their ideas quick and start gelling because, I could see Carrick out the door by November, December if things don't go to plan.
Yeah, getting upset like that is always going to put the bullseye on your back. You mentioned Tottenham Hotspur in what you just discussed there. They were big spenders this offseason and trying to bounce back after finishing 17th. How do you do the way that they struggled against Brentford? Do you see that there's concerns with that spending not translating immediately, or should there be some patience for them?
Yeah, I think patience would probably be the key word there because I think De Zerbi is a very capable manager. And I think a lot of the signings they made were very appropriate for the holes that Spurs needed to plug from the last few seasons. They've definitely raised the floor of their squad. And taking nothing away from Brentford again, I think Brentford are a fantastic team, hometown for me. And I love what they do. They are such a fantastic Premier League team. Everyone underrates them every season. They make fantastic investments. They moneyball the hell out of English football, and it works. It's great to see. However, I do think Spurs, as we saw in the Carabao Cup midweek a few days ago, they bounced back 5-1 against, I think, Charlton it was. New signing Savino, or Savio, as he wants to be called now, scored as well, which I think takes the pressure off again. I think once this Spurs team and the players like Manchester United gel eventually at some point, playing De Zerbi football will be very exciting. So, yeah, I think they came across a hard opponent in Brentford to kick their match week 1 off. But I do think they'll be back. I think I have a little bit more faith in Spurs this season, again, playing one game a week compared to, say, Manchester United, because they're going to have to really up their level. But yeah, I'd say to Spurs fans, a bit of patience will go a long way, because I feel like there is a lot of potential in this team.
So the transfer window, just to close this out here, to look ahead, it closes on September 1st. Who are one or two guys that you think EPL fans should be watching that could possibly be on the move that contenders could be looking to add?
Yeah, there is a lot going on in the This is a crazy week for transfers. They've been all over the place. The big movers are probably Bradley Barcola, I think, has just had a here we go from Fabrizio Romano, meaning he's signing for around, I think it's 115 million euros, which would actually make Liverpool's front four absolutely easily the most expensive in football history. 500 million euros, I think they all tot up to. Wirtz, Isak, Barcola, and Ekitike. So absolutely insane money. On paper, that's a scary sight. But as we saw last season, problems always arise. Injuries are always there. But Barcola is a fantastic signing, I would say, for Liverpool. And again, like I was saying earlier, brings a bit of like X factor into the league again. The Premier League are just losing so many stars. And I think Barcola could have a great season with Liverpool. They're due a better season than they did last time. Annoyingly for me, yeah, Enzo Fernandez looks like he probably will be leaving Chelsea this season. His heart doesn't look like he's in the club anymore after 4 very turbulent seasons, up and down, managerial merry-go-rounds. And to be fair to him, I can understand why he would want to leave. It would be nice if he stayed with Xabi and gave it one last go, because Chelsea seem like they're on the up this season. And Manchester City, well, they've sold a whole starting 11 this week. It's absolutely crazy. And they've brought in 300 million. If they bring in Enzo, they bring in 300 million pound players in midfield, which again, another unheard of scenario. I would say those are the two big hitters. But other than that, I think Aston Villa are making good signings. We said the other day that it was quite scary how many players they had lost. And now they've brought in Goretzka, they've brought in Suzuki, they're looking to bring in Nicholas Jackson before deadline day from Chelsea. So some great signings there, as they, again, are in Champions League football and in the pursuit of trying to stay in the top half of the table, because after losing all those players last week, I was very worried for them.
All right, well, we'll see what happens in this coming week. We'll be back next week. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out when we have that conversation. Hit the like button on this video as well. And also go on over to thesportsgeek.com and check out the Beat the Geek contest for this upcoming NFL season. You can win an NFL trip for 2 as the grand prize, or weekly prizes as well. It's free to sign up. Thanks, everybody. We'll talk to you soon.